the Diocese of Paterson, New Jersey. The story of the faith in this region began with missionary priests during the colonial era. It was nurtured and sustained through holy bishops, priests, and nuns, and carries on today through the guidance of Bishop Kevin Sweeney.
In the ministry that the Lord is asking of me as bishop, I have to ask him for the help and the guidance and the strength. So that means, as busy as things are, to find some time to be at prayer with him and listen to his voice.
This is the story of the bishops of America, the shepherds of the past and the shepherds of today, who through their callings and ministry carry the church into the future. It's also the story of their parish, their church, the cathedral. This is The Chair, an exploration of what it means to be an apostle in America. Encompassing New Jersey's 3 northernmost counties, surrounded by some of the greatest natural beauty the Garden State has to offer, is the Diocese of Paterson.
I've learned it's a diocese that has great leadership, great history, and a church that's very much alive, and it's becoming more and more diverse. The experience of confirmation allows me to get to most of the parishes, and just that experience of going in and meeting the pastor and meeting some of the leaders and then celebrating Mass. You see the church alive and thriving, and the leadership has done an amazing job.
Northern New Jersey was originally home to various Native American tribes. This area fell under the jurisdiction of New Netherlands when the Dutch came to North America in the 17th century. Dutch control was short-lived when the English took over. This area became part of the colony of New Jersey before the American Revolution.
During the colonial days of the United States, in particular this area of New Jersey, the people were not that friendly or welcoming towards Catholics. So as a result, the population was primarily Protestant, and we would have these missionary priests who would travel from between Philadelphia and the New York area and stop in the area of Paterson to say an occasional Mass in someone's home.
The city of Paterson developed as one of the nation's earliest industrial centers, fueled by the water power offered by the Great Falls of the Passaic River. And in fact, it was Alexander Hamilton who first recognized the industrial potential of the region and worked to promote industrial development through the establishment of the Society of Useful Manufacturers.
The town was named for William Paterson, a signer of the U.S. Constitution. Now, Paterson was an associate Supreme Court justice, and he also served as the second governor of the state of New Jersey. Paterson himself signed the charter establishing the city in 1792. In the 19th century, the textile industry and other manufacturing jobs brought thousands to live and work in Paterson, and soon the city became known as Silk City. During the Civil War, an Irishman by the name of Father William McNulty arrived in Paterson. He was affectionately known as Father Mac and quickly set about establishing the infrastructure of the church in Paterson. During his decades of work in Paterson, he not only built parishes and schools, but also a hospital and institutions for poor boys and girls in the city. When McNulty died in 1922 at the age of 93, the mayor of Paterson declared the day of his funeral a holiday and flew the flags at half-mast. He closed both Catholic and public schools in his honor. One of his lasting contributions is building what is today the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist.
When Father McNulty comes, he moves St. John's to the corner of Main and Grand. When Paterson becomes its own diocese in 1937, the church, St. John the Baptist, is elevated to the level of a cathedral. So I think it's really interesting when we go to Paterson today, we see it is actually the tallest building in Paterson, one of the oldest churches, and the church physically as a building grew along with the faith of the Catholic community in Paterson as well.
In 1937, the Diocese of Paterson was created by taking territory that formerly belonged to the Diocese of Newark. Thomas H. McLaughlin, an auxiliary bishop of Newark, was named the first bishop. Now, McLaughlin had served as dean of Seton Hall University from 1914 until 1922, when he was elected the president of Seton Hall and rector of Immaculate Conception Seminary. He remained in this post until 1938, when he was raised to the episcopacy. He was a very learned man who brought his great theological depth to the diocese. Now, he would remain bishop for the next 10 years until his early death at the age of 65.
When the diocese was established, it was a diocese that primarily served the immigrant population. At that period of time, it was the Irish. It still serves a large immigrant community, but now consisting of people from the Caribbean, South America, as well as Eastern Europe, in addition to the original Irish and Italian immigrants.
By the time the diocese celebrated its 25th anniversary in 1963, the number of Catholics in the diocese had nearly doubled, reaching almost 250,000, and it's estimated that about 200 building projects had been completed in that 25-year span.
Throughout its history as a diocese, the bishops of Paterson have called the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist home. It is a stunning church with a rich history, and it's a testament to the faith of the people of Paterson.
St. John the Baptist, the future cathedral, was established in 1821 and is one of the oldest Catholic churches in the entire state of New Jersey. The parish began with a small wooden structure on land that was donated by the city's industrialists. It was replaced 15 years later by a small stone church, and then in 1865, the cornerstone for the present church was laid by Bishop Bailey of Newark. The building was designed by Patrick Keeley, a Brooklyn-based architect who was known for his ecclesiastical commissions, especially cathedrals, including the cathedral in Chicago and Boston. And the choice of Keeley as an architect was perhaps a sign that the church itself was one day destined to become a cathedral.
The cathedral has undergone roughly 14 renovations, the most recently in the early 2000s. This is the mother church of the diocese.
Seeing this cathedral, learning that it had just been reopened just 2 or 3 years ago after a 6 or 7 year renovation, and learning its history, the history of the parish. The parish is going to be celebrating its 200th anniversary. The church, its 150th anniversary. A blessing to have such a beautiful cathedral, and in the heart of the city of Paterson. It's wonderful to see the diversity of the diocese.
One of the really amazing things when visiting a Patrick Keeley church is to put yourself in the place of someone visiting it and worshiping there at the time that it was built. So people working in mills, living in tenements, and to come into a building like this, to come together for the liturgy, to experience the feast with your eyes, the music, to smell incense, to taste and touch, and have this incredible sensory experience that the Mass is in this resplendently beautiful cathedral.
Like many of his other hundreds of churches across the United States, Keeley designed St. John's in the neo-Gothic style. The brownstone for the walls were quarried in nearby Little Falls, New Jersey, and then sent into Paterson through one of the city's many canals. The cathedral's dimensions are 88 feet across by 180 feet deep, with a bell tower reaching 220 feet high. The interior columns reach up 60 feet. And fittingly, Father McNulty is buried in front of his cathedral.
When we think about the community that built this church, this immigrant community, they built it through their financial contributions as well as their own sweat equity. They personally were building this. And as you really think about the amount of pride to have such a beautiful church in one's community, it really is a testament to that relationship between beauty and dignity.
The bishop's chair, or cathedra, inside the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist symbolizes Bishop Sweeney's authority as the Apostle of Paterson.
I grew up in Whitestone, Queens, New York. First generation, my parents both came from Ireland. My mom, 1951, and my dad in 1963. And I have an older sister, a younger brother. Grew up on a wonderful dead-end block in Whitestone in the parish of St. Luke. I went to the parish grammar school and then Cathedral Prep High School in Elmhurst. The first time I can remember thinking about being a priest was when 7th grade homeroom, Sister Margaret Mary talked about high schools. It's funny, I can still see it was a yellow sheet of paper at all the Catholic high schools, Brooklyn and Queens, and she mentioned this school, Cathedral Prep, was for boys who thought that Jesus maybe could be calling them to be a priest. I'd always wanted to be a baseball player, play for the Yankees, and I still did at that time, but that was the first time I can remember thinking, oh, maybe God wants me to be a priest. So I went to the open house at the high school and asked about the baseball team and whether it was hard to make it, but ended up going there and meeting some wonderful priests who were great role models. I think my prayer life really started at that time, and spiritual direction was a big help throughout the seminary. In the college seminary, doing an apostolate in the South Bronx, run by the Missionaries of Charity, getting to know Mother Teresa, especially through her sisters and their work, and Mother Teresa teaching us to see the Lord in the distressing disguise of the poor, and to see the way those sisters cared for and ministered to people in very tough circumstances, hurting and suffering. I got ordained in June of '97. My mother was overjoyed. A lot of times I felt she was too excited about it. My father, much more quiet, not much to say, didn't say much one way or the other. We didn't talk too much about things other than baseball and golf. I guess when I was far along in the seminary and we had started playing some golf together, and sometimes we'd go as two of us and they put us together with someone else, and all of a sudden he started saying, "This is my son Kevin, soon to be Father Kevin." By the time I was the day I said my first Mass, we had a little reception afterwards, my father gave this long speech about how happy he was, and apparently he had been working on it for months in his room trying to put together his thoughts, and so in the end, he was happy.
After his ordination, Father Kevin Sweeney immediately went to work in a variety of Spanish-speaking ministries within the Diocese of Brooklyn. In 2004, Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio appointed him the Vocations Director for the diocese.
As I moved along my years as Vocation Director, when we would have certain events, at the beginning there were a few times where, is anybody going to show up? There were 2 or 3 guys, but then as things developed with the House of Discernment, especially, and some other events, and Bishop DiMarzio with these Project Andrew dinners that he would have priests bring guys, and there was a certain sense of excitement, and it's not only me, I'm not the only one who's thought about priesthood, and so getting guys together and getting those discerners with the seminarians offered that encouragement and gave guys some support to, think about it more seriously and pray about it more seriously, certainly. It turned out being a real blessing, and I got to say, Bishop DiMarzio, I had his full support, and he was very much a man of his word in working for vocations and helping me in that ministry. I was happy to serve 6 years as vocation director, but I was definitely ready to get back to the parish as in that 4th and 5th and 6th year, I guess. I had actually talked a little bit with Bishop DiMarzio. By that point, I think he had a place in mind, and he told me he was sending me to St. Michael's in Sunset Park. So, wow, I couldn't have received a greater gift. The first 6 months, I was still vocation director, and I became pastor in January, so that was an interesting time. But the previous pastor was a wonderful guy who had done great work, and he couldn't have been more supportive as I was becoming the pastor, and he had a good staff. It was getting to know this community, staff, lay leaders, community itself, and then, year by year, being more and more part of that parish family and the community, that was a different experience of priesthood, being in one community for 10 years, a real blessing.
On April 15, 2020, Pope Francis appointed Kevin Sweeney as Bishop of Paterson. He was consecrated and installed on July 1, 2020. Due to the COVID pandemic, attendance was limited to about 100 people, but many more tuned in via live broadcast.
Public Mass in Brooklyn was March 15th. It sticks out, I don't know why. And then 2 weeks later, Monday, March 30th, I was in my room and the phone was on the other side of the room charging, and I heard it buzzing, and I went to go look at the number, and it was a 2-something number, and I didn't pick it up, and I went back to, I was actually, I think, saying my prayers, and 20 minutes later, so I go back to the phone and I see there's a voice message. So I listened to the voice message, and this is Archbishop Christophe Pierre from the Nunciature. There's something I'd like to talk to you about. Please call me back at this number. Looking back, the thing that surprised me, I didn't stop to think, why is this person calling me? I just said, oh, I should call him back. I called him back. He picked right up. He says, the Holy Father is choosing you to be the next Bishop of Paterson. I've heard in other times that he asked somebody if they're sitting down. He might have forgotten to, because I wasn't sitting down, and I did sit down and I think I was literally speechless because I didn't respond, and if I remember. And the thing I remember him saying is, Paterson, do you know where that is? I said, New Jersey. But that was about all I knew about what I would come to know as Passaic, Morris, and Sussex counties, the 3 counties in northern New Jersey that make up our diocese here in Paterson. Bishop Serratelli was wonderful in the whole process. Bishop DiMarzio was great, and I spent 5 days with him in his house doing a retreat to prepare for the ordination. And then Cardinal Tobin, it was wonderful to meet him and speak with him. And I met him on the day of the ordination, but he was the principal consecrator. But he was wonderful, and it's been great since. There was a moment early on where I kind of looked up, and I don't know, I just got a sense of the presence of my parents, that somehow, and we believe, as every Mass we're in union with the Church in Heavens. There was a moment where it was like they were right there. So then as the ceremony, beautiful ceremonies that our church has for an ordination, receiving the staff and the mitre and the ring, it's been described when your nose hits the marble as diaconate and priesthood. I never figured I'd be having that 3rd time down on the floor, prostrate, as the Litany of Saints was sung. But certainly that's a powerful moment, and kind of where you got to say, okay, Lord, this is your plan, and here I am, and getting up and kneeling in front of the Cardinal Tobin and being anointed with the oil of chrism certainly stands out. And then offering a few words at the end of thanks for so many that had given the gift of faith, shared the gift of faith by their example. But I've come to appreciate over the last year that you really can only do one thing at a time, and that means you got to decide what's the priority, what's most important, not only today, but this hour and next hour, and having people help who do scheduling and relying on support staff. Probably is a part of me that likes to do things myself, get it done, but you realize pretty quickly that trying to be the shepherd in a diocese, I'm not going to be able to do it by myself. Relying on others and trusting them has been something that I've come to realize I'm going to have to be able to do, and there's definitely going to be some growing pains and a growth curve, but trying to take it a day at a time and trust in the Lord that I'm trying to do His will as best I can. In the ministry that the Lord is asking of me as bishop, I have to ask Him for the help and the guidance and the strength. So that means, as busy as things are, to find some time to be at prayer with Him and listen to His voice.